All right, hello. In this video, we are going to get going with the reader package. The reader package is a core tidyverse package in order to import a CSV file into our R session. And so there are equivalent base R functions that are called read.csv instead of, say, read_CSV. And we'll talk about those functions as well and compare them to the functions in readr. But compared to base R functions, using the functions built into the reader package, such as read_CSV, those functions work faster, they're more efficient. So if you're working with a very large data frame, that improvement in speed and efficiency is really important. And in fact, you'll notice it more and more as your data sets are larger and larger. It brings some consistency into the importing process. What's nice is that since the reader package is in the tidyverse, when we import data sets using reader functions, the corresponding data frames that are created are in a tibble format, and we've seen why that is advantageous, particularly if we're going to stay in the tidyverse and use dplyr and tidyr and ggplot packages. Those tibbles are going to work nicer with other tidyverse packages. And we'll have some more flexible ways to specify for column specifications, and we'll explore that in this module later on. So if you want to see all of the various arguments that are possible with the read CSV function, I'm going to just run $read CSV, oops, all in lowercase, and that opens up the help documentation that's useful to refer to. So you can see all of the various options that are available. This is the read delim function. Here's the read CSV function that we'll be using. So we can do quite a bit of our wrangling during the import process that will make working with the data easier once it's imported. So that's something to keep an eye on. Okay, I will close this down, but just know you can refer to this help documentation at any point running the read_CSV. And there's also links provided in this document to these packages. So the read CSV function, and again, when we're using the reader package, there's going to be an underscore between read and CSV, or between read and whatever the file format might be that follows after that. So for importing a CSV file, the command is read underscore, and then the file type is CSV. And there's really one required input into this function, which is the file that we want to import. And that file can be stored locally on your computer. That file might be stored online with an HTML or with a web address to that file, which is what we have in this example. I'm working in Google Colab, so just be aware that if we're working in Colab and we are importing a file that's on our computer, it's going to be advantageous. It might just be a little bit easier for you to import that file into Google Drive, and it'll be easier to access that file within Google Drive in Colab. If you're working with some other software like RStudio, then you can store that file locally on your computer and input the path to the file when you import it using read CSV. So in this case, we have a web address to this CSV file, which is hosted in a cloud. And we can import that into a data frame. It's actually going to be a tibble that we create called students. So all I need is read_CSV and then the name of the file in double quotes. And again, if it's a web page, if it's hosted online someplace, we just input the address to the file. If it's stored in our drive someplace or on our computer someplace, then we need to indicate the path to the file, and the path and the file name, all of that would go inside of double quotes as well. So let's run this code cell. We have imported the file and we've stored it to this data frame called students. We're not seeing the output of students because we haven't asked R to print that output to the screen. But what I can see is a little message. This is not an error. It's not telling me that anything bad happened. It's just a little info message that's telling me information about the input, about the import. It's telling me how many rows and columns were in the data set that I just imported. And it's also telling me how each of the columns was formatted. So I have 4 variables that were formatted as characters, and I have 1 variable that is formatted as double, as a decimal. So that's what I can see. That's what this information is telling me. So I can see that right away. I can see how the dimensions of my data frame, and I can see the names of the columns that were created, and I can see what type of what data type each of those columns, what each of those variables are. And if I want to take a look at students, I can do my print and I get a nice enhanced print because this is a tibble. I've got 6 rows, 6 observations, 5 columns. I have 5 variables. We can see the names of these variables and the values for each of the observations. And as you're looking at this, you might see some issues with this data. And that's what we'll get to in the very next video, is what are some issues with the data that we just imported and how can we fix them. Okay, thanks everyone.